We'll go live. All righty. We should be live. Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me all. It should be starting up for all of you. How are you going, everyone? In the chat, this is JCK, and I am so pleased after all this time, not only to talk to my good friend Mark Devlin, but to also be live with him. I decided to go live as Mark is coming to Australia, and we wanted to let you know all about this. And Mark, you're here with us, thank gosh. Okay, let's see. Everyone's here. Everybody's so excited to hear from you, Mark. So I'm going to let you tell us all about what you've been up to.
Great. Well, thanks for getting me on. It's great to be back with you. Excuse the slightly disheveled appearance. I'm a bit exhausted and jet lagged at the moment. I've just got back from Las Vegas. I got invited to go out there to the Flatoberfest conference. There's my t-shirt. So I was one of the speakers out there with a lot of wonderful people, some really big names in the scene. Some awesome knowledge was shared. And it was a really good weekend. I wasn't there to gamble or any of that usual Vegas stuff. Just happened to be in Las Vegas, but it was a great conference. But I'm a bit knackered and battered because it's an 11-hour flight and it's a bit punishing on the body. And I'm off for more of that next week, of course. So I've got about a week at home, and then my body's going to take another battering as I go through Lord knows how many different time zones, and do it all over again as I come to Australia. So not long now, I will be leaving the UK in 6 days and then embarking on this rather ambitious schedule for a week or so. I used to do this in my DJ glory days. I did 6 DJing tours of Australia between 2003 and 2009. But of course, I was a much younger man then, so I was able to handle it. I was dashing around from city to city and doing all these gigs and having great fun, really enjoying Aussie culture. It's been 14 years now since I was there.
Wow.
So I thought it's about time I came back.
Yes. Oh my gosh. We are so grateful to have you. And I don't know if you remember this, Mark, but I said to you at the start of 2020, before I had a YouTube channel, I was all set to come and see you in Sydney. I was so excited. It was like I was going to
Right.
meet David Icke. But you were like,
Wow.
you're my David Icke. I was so excited to come and meet you in March, and literally the day Australia announced that we were shutting the borders was the day you were supposed to fly out. And
The
I
very day.
think it was that very day, and you had
Yep.
to make the difficult decision, lose some money and cancel the tour. And I was so bummed out. And who would have thought 3.5 years later,
Well, yeah.
you're coming back pretty
I,
much.
I see a window of opportunity here because the timing, as you say, has been absolutely expert. I mean, you couldn't have made it up any better. I was due to leave the UK in the very week that we got plunged into our draconian lockdown. And the same thing had happened in Australia. So it was terrible timing in terms of having scheduled that tour. I'm friends with Danny Rampling, the very well known DJ, and he'd just done a DJing tour of Australia. And he told me that he got out on the very last flight to leave Perth before they shut down everything. So if he'd been 24 hours later, he would have been stranded in Australia for God knows how long. And that
Yeah.
could have happened to me if I'd come out as well. So, of course, I had to take the difficult decision to cancel that tour. There's no way it could have gone ahead. But here we are now, 3.5 years later, and they've just removed the need for the old
Yeah.
to get into America. That happened in May.
Yes.
So I saw an opportunity to get out to the States. I got the invitation from Karen B to go and be a part of Flatoberfest in Vegas. And I saw the opportunity to come to Australia because I think your country removed this
Yeah. Oh, ages ago. Yeah.
requirement about a
Mm-hmm.
year ago or something like that. So I
Yeah.
thought, well, I better do it now because nobody knows what's round the corner. And there was
Mm.
a point in 2020 when all the madness was going on where I honestly thought that I was never going to get to travel again. And I was resigning myself to the idea that I would be stuck on British shores for the rest of my natural life. And of course, for whatever reason, that's not the case, and we have been able to travel
Mm,
again. And at the moment, I'm able to get into Australia without any of that sort of BS. So I
no,
thought,
you
well, I better do this tour now. As a result of the work I've been putting out since 2020, I've had contact from a lot of people in Australia showing an interest in my work. And many of them have said, oh, when are you coming out to do a talk out here? We'd love to come and see you. So I thought, okay, now is the time I've got to do it. 2023, we finally get this tour done, hit these 4 cities, and just do what needs to be done. So it's happening.
fantastic, Mark. We've got so many people in the chat saying they can't wait to see you and can't wait to come. It looks like the Melbourne and Brisbane gig is very popular. For some reason, I've got Sydney. We've still got some tickets available for Sydney. Guys, if you want to see me, Zhao, I see Zhao Moxis in the chat. If you and Annette want to come, I'm going. We'll come and we'll meet up in Sydney because I'm going to the 4th of November gig in Sydney. Let's hope poor dear Mark is not going to be too jet lagged. I know the flight going to the UK from here was fine for me, but coming back was big old jet lag. Felt like a
Well,
massive, massive headache. Yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
I think they say if you go west from a location, you should be okay. But
Yeah, if
flat
you
earth thing, who
go
knows?
west around the spinning ball hurtling through space and you'll be just fine.
Oh wow. Yes, everybody's excited. There's so many people in the chat I haven't seen in ages. How you going, Zhao? You've been subbed to Mark since day one. Listen, I have one of my admins, Kathleen. I just want to give her a shout out. She said to me today, if it wasn't for Mark Devlin, I wouldn't have survived lockdown. She absolutely,
Wow,
she just was so happy that she said she had your books during lockdown and she read read them, and it just cheered her up no end. She loved it. She loved all the
that's great to
information
know.
in there. So
I can't
yeah,
see the
so
chat from here. Is there any way I can access the chat
yeah.
myself?
If you go to you're just in YouTube in Zoom. If you go to my channel, I'll just pop it in the chat, the link, and
Yeah, sorry, I just thought
because
it'd
this
be good.
isn't like StreamYard. No, it's not like StreamYard. I'll just grab
I do
the
have
link
the
for
link.
you,
Just give me a moment and I'll try and watch it
the
on
link
there.
for the video, and then you can minimize our
Yeah,
Zoom thing. And it's a bit of a delay there.
sure. Yeah, a
So
lot of
if
people have,
anyone, yeah,
sorry, a lot of people have told me that my videos really helped them through and helped them to cope, because I think what people appreciated about what I was posting in 2020 and 21 was that I was very open and honest about how I was feeling about things. So a lot of
same
people
with me.
discovered me as a result of my infamous car rant of
Yes.
April 2020. And I was getting that when I was in the States. A lot of people were saying, oh, loved your car rant, man. It was great to hear you express all that stuff.
People want to hear it, they want to hear the truth. The same thing happened to me, Mark, before. I think it was either just before you and I did our last chat on my channel. That went a bit, popular. I think it got deleted off your YouTube channel. Did your YouTube channel get banned?
Yeah, I'm on my 4th YouTube channel right now. So I
Wow.
lost the first 3. And that car rant was posted on the first YouTube
Yeah.
channel, which I'd had since 2008. So
Mm.
there was a lot of content on there, but I kept on
Is
being
it on
very open
BitChute?
and candid about how I was feeling. And eventually it got me banned off that first channel. So I started a second, same thing happened with the third. And at that point, I thought, I'm done with YouTube, just not going to bother with them anymore. And then I thought, well, actually, no, I'll try a fourth. I'll just post little snippet teasers of the main video and direct people over to where they can find it on Odyssey and BitChute. And then I got brave again, which is what I did with the third channel. And I thought, F it, I'll just post everything I've got up on the channel and see what happens. So far, no strikes. We'll see what happens. The last
Yeah.
channel disappeared without any warning, without any strikes whatsoever. It just went overnight. So any sort of skullduggery may happen with this lot. But in the meantime, we use them, right? They're
Yeah.
trying to surveil and monitor us and control us and mind control us. So why not use their platforms to
Mm-hmm.
get out our empowering truth? That's why I stay on Facebook and Twitter. People say, oh, you should have nothing to do with
No.
these platforms, but they do remain a great way of getting information out to large numbers of people. And if we can still do that on YouTube, then we should, hence why we do these.
Absolutely. I only just today started monetizing my channel after 3 years of not monetizing. I have not made 1 cent from YouTube. But get this, the reason why they're deleting my followers, they're deleting my subscribers, people aren't getting notifications, is because they can't make money out of me. So I had to monetize for them to make money so they can push my videos and out to
Right.
my subscribers. It's crazy how you have
And
to
sell
play
their
this
BS
game.
ads.
Yeah. So it's crazy how we should do that. Kath Kennedy in the chat says, Mark was my savior throughout the scamdemic. He was speaking my thoughts out loud. Incredible. We have that in
Wow.
common, Mark, because I had the same thing happening. I had a lot of rants going on, and I was just saying that I think it was either just before or just after you and I chatted about Q. I did this big rant, and everyone was going off, and I had all these controversial YouTubers contacting me and saying thank you for your rant, and I'm sure
Hmm.
you had the same with yours. You're speaking. We've got to be the ones that are brave enough to speak up and be the voice for people. Can you tell us a bit more about your tour? I'm going to just pop. I'm just going to share screen with everyone. Everyone in the link. I will pin the comment in the chat below, but it is in the description at the top of the description, Mark's link to get the tickets if you haven't already bought a ticket. Just bear with me
Sure.
and we'll have a look. So as I do this, you can chat away, Mark, and tell us about what you're going to talk about on the tour.
Okay, so I'm hitting 4 cities. The first one is Melbourne, which is next Wednesday. Damn, that's close. Wednesday, 1st of November. Then on the 2nd, I'm across to Brisbane. I'm kind of zigzagging around,
You're
it doesn't
going
make.
down, then up, then
Yeah,
down.
I could probably have planned it better and done Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, but for some reason I'm doing Melbourne first, then across to Brisbane on the 2nd. Then I've allowed myself a day off because I think I'll probably need it. And I had the idea I might hire a car and go down to Gold Coast, but I think that's a bit ambitious. I think I'll just be too tired for
Sleep.
that. So I'm going to rest up on the Friday. Going to be with my good friend Amanda McLeod, who is promoting my Brisbane
Oh,
gig.
she's in the chat. Hi,
Big shout,
Amanda.
big shout to Amanda. Then on Saturday, I'm across to Sydney, and the Sydney gig is the only one that's taking place in the daytime. So this is 1 to 5 in the afternoon. The other gigs are in the evening. The reason for that is that the Sydney gig is linking with an existing group which meets regularly at Club Burwood in Sydney. So big shout to Marie, who organises that. We just thought it'd be good to piggyback on that existing meetup. And as they always meet Saturday afternoons 1 till 5, we would just stick with that time and I would go into that gig. And then on the Sunday, it's Perth. So Sunday, 5th of November, bonfire night in the UK. So happy to be missing that. And that's another evening gig. So they all kick off about 6:30. They're going to go on till about 9:30, 10 o'clock. Each gig is going to be in 2 parts. So it's me presenting information from my 3 musical truth books. Part 1 will be an hour, hour and a quarter, something like that. Then we'll have a break of about 15, 20 minutes. And then we're back for part 2, which might be another hour, hour and a half. And then there'll be an opportunity for Q&A at the end of each one. And I'll be sort of mingling around and probably happy to go off for a beer with anyone that wants to go and have an additional chat afterwards. So yeah, at each event, I'll be unpacking a lot of the information that I've been presenting over the past, getting on for 15 years, about the true nature of the corporate music industry, what it's really used for. So people are entrained to think of that institution as being all about harmless fun and entertainment. Just forgetting about your worries, letting your hair down and enjoying some good music, whether it's live music, going to a club, rocking out to an album at home, whatever it may be. Unfortunately, the truth of the matter is that that's the cover story. And what these A-list bands and these well-known musicians are really used for is the pushing of so-called elite globalist agendas. There's mass mind control in there. There's social engineering. It's the shaping and molding of people's perceptions and the way that they view the world that is actually constructed for them through popular culture and entertainment. And I'll be presenting all the evidence for that, many examples of how it's got done in the past and how it continues to get done. Basically, whatever the flavor of the month is in terms of the elite agendas that are getting pushed, you can find that expressed through popular music. So in 2023, for example, with much of this stuff, which I don't even consider to be music, it's just noise, you're finding agendas like transhumanism, for example, artificial intelligence, the glorification of all of that, getting pushed blatantly through many of these artists. You're finding the transgender agenda, because that's what it is a social engineering agenda. It can be proven to be so. That's getting pushed through many of these artists. And unfortunately, it goes a lot darker than that, even when you get into Satanism and dark occult ritual. And people are horrified when they hear that. Their initial reaction is that can't possibly be true. It sounds too outrageous. But again, all the evidence is there. I'm all about evidence. If you look at my books at the end of each chapter, I've got a long list of resources to show where I got this information from, lest anyone think I'm making it up or pulling it out of my backside. So there'll be plenty of that. And in the second part of each event, I'm going to be honing in on some Australian artists. So I'll have fine-tuned that second part of the presentation to talk about some very well-known Aussie bands and solo musicians and examining some of the nefarious aspects of them. So I've done a deep dive on some very well-known Aussie names, and it may upset a few, particularly when I'm going to be in the home city of many of these artists. But again, it's all going to be evidence-based, and I'll be inviting the audience to make up their own minds about what I present to them. You know, some of it's going to be unsettling, some of it's going to be unwelcome, but it was that way for me. When I started out about 15 years ago doing this sort of research, I was coming across stuff which pissed me off. You know, I didn't like it. It was uncomfortable, but I had to face the truth of the matter because I'm someone that wants truth. And I think anyone that turns up to any of these talks has demonstrated that they're interested in getting to the truth of the matter. Otherwise, they'd just be at home watching the soaps or the ball game or whatever it is. So that's what we're here for. We're here to uncover truths, no matter how unsettling they may be. It's always better to know. And the only way that we move on and create a better world for everyone, specifically future generations, our children's generation, is to face up to these truths and take whatever action is required to put down these agendas and end this mind control, this tyranny, this human enslavement. And it gets done very insidiously through popular culture. People don't expect all this stuff to be happening through favorite music artists, but it absolutely is. And that's been the very core of all the work that I've been doing these past 15 years or so. And that's what I'm going to be bringing to these audiences.
Thanks, Mark. Have you noticed in the years that you've been doing this that your audience has been much more widely, is it growing? Are people, more and more people waking up to this? Are more and more people that never believed in anything like this opening their minds now?
Absolutely. I've been doing a lot of talks in the UK over the past 3.5 years of this nature, or when I've been able to get into venues anyway, because I've not really been able to travel. I'm someone who, up until the end of 2019, used to travel a lot as a DJ mainly, but I really enjoyed international travel. I've not been able to do that since 2020 for obvious reasons, but something which struck me after months and months and months of getting out on the road in the UK, because I've been up and down the length and breadth of this country presenting this information, is when I was in America at the weekend. And I did my talk on Saturday, and I was unpacking much of the information that I've presented in the UK. And I was getting gasps from the audience, and their jaws were dropping to the floor when I was talking about certain things. And I was looking at the reactions and thinking, wow, you guys don't know this? And I realized that UK audiences know a lot of the stuff that I talk about because many of them are familiar with my work
Yeah.
and they've heard it all before. But American audiences, they've not heard this stuff. I was talking about David Bowie and his reported death, and this guy, Jack Steven, that they wheeled out that looked and sounded just like him. And I played the
Mm.
video clip, and people were like, wow, that's amazing. And, stuff about Prince and the guy,
Yeah.
Dave, that they wheeled out in the wake of Michael Jackson's reported death. I played that video of when he appeared on
Yeah.
Larry King on CNN. And again, people were like, what? What? And I just realized that there are probably audiences outside of the UK who aren't as familiar with my work as British audiences are. So I think there's a lot of value in me getting this knowledge out to other audiences. And I think I'm going to find that in Australia. Hopefully, there's going
Yeah.
to be some jaws to the floor in a good way, because once
Mm.
people hear this information, they can't unhear it. There's no
Mm.
way it's going back in the box, people are going to be going away from these gigs, I think, with their minds blown, and it's still going to be on their minds the next day. And
Mm.
hopefully, it's going to stay with them to the point that they're going to take some sort of action, whether it's avoiding some of this toxic garbage that they're putting out as music these days, or whether it's just applying new scrutiny to some of their favorite bands and stuff. And I don't do this to piss people off. A lot of people get this twisted. They think I'm out there and I get some sort of perverted pleasure from just destroying people's nostalgic attachment to their favorite artists. It's not why I do it.
Yeah.
I do it because somebody's got to be doing it, and I just seem to have filled that vacancy. And there's a lot of great commentators, great researchers, great broadcasters talking about the geopolitical arena, and they do it really well. They comment on current affairs. They put it all into context. David Icke's great at this, for example. You've got people that comment on the medical tyranny, former doctors, former big pharma CEOs coming forward. I
Yep.
got an email from Mike Yeadon, Dr. Mike Yeadon, a couple of days ago, which was amazing to me.
Wow.
This guy's been an absolute hero in terms of
Yeah.
exposing the medical tyranny that's been going on. And I got an email from him saying, "Oh, Mark, I've discovered your work and it's amazing. And I want to get your books. And thank you for opening my eyes to what music is really used for." And I was like, wow, that's so gratifying coming from this guy, because I've got
Mm.
respect for him in terms of what he's been doing to expose his industry or former industry. So you've got all these people that are really great at their own respective subject areas. And someone needs to be bringing all this information about the music industry to the big picture, because it's like a big jigsaw puzzle. You
Mm.
put all the pieces in place. You can see what's happening with politics, with science, with medicine, with academia. And when you slot that last piece in, which is how music and popular culture is used, the big picture emerges. And you can see that it's all one big agenda leading towards the New World Order master plan, which they want to bring in, but they won't. They're not going to achieve it because there's too many of us onto it now. There's too much exposure of this. Too much knowledge has been leaked. They're never going to take it there. They're not going out without a fight. So we've got some troublesome times ahead, I'm sure, but they're not going to achieve what they want to because too many of us are doing this kind of work. Too many of us have had our consciences activated, and we've decided we can't just sit around doing nothing. We've got to take action. There's been a lot of resistance, particularly in Australia, particularly in Melbourne, I have to say.
Mm.
Obviously, Victoria had it really bad. I know all
Yeah.
Australians did, but under Dan Andrews, Victoria was a total nightmare from what I was
Mhm.
seeing. So a lot of resistance there, and that's great to see. So we're building on that, and we just keep doing what we need to do. We're plodding ahead on the battlefield, and eventually we'll take it to where we need to be.
We had a really great audience in Melbourne when I was there with Kelly Jones and Campbell Purvis in July. So you're going to have a real treat. These people are really wide awake. And, I can't wait to see you myself. I've got some people in the chat who are just, speculating as to who the Australian artists might be that you talk about. But on the Australian artists, do you think that because this is a much smaller country with kind of like a closer knit um, entertainment industry, could it be said that most of them are in sort of these elite circles and bloodline families and things like that that have made it into the music industry?
Well, absolutely, yeah. Should I name the names? What do you think?
Can I speculate on so? I mean, I could just
Yeah,
pluck
you.
any famous names out of the
All
sky
right.
and I'll
Well,
tell you,
there's
I
like
know from
five.
my own stories that they are involved.
There's five major Australian artists. So have a guess who you think it is.
Okay, Jimmy Barnes.
No, no.
Oh, okay, how about genre? Talk about the genre.
All right. Pop princess.
Ah, yes, Kylie Minogue, the Minogue family.
Yeah, bit to say on Kylie. We've
Yeah.
got a well-known entertainer known for his didgeridoo,
Oh, are you serious?
a deceased artist.
Oh, wow.
Pell,
Really?
big pals with Jimmy Savile.
Oh, you're talking about someone who
Into the
wobbled a.
same interests.
Wow, no. Oh,
Out of
that's so
Perth.
sad. Oh, okay. That's
Okay,
really.
we're talking Rolf Harris. Okay.
Yes, I know. That's
Yeah.
why I did the wobbly board. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
We know
yeah,
about
yeah.
Rolf Harris.
We've
Yeah.
got another female singer songwriter who's known for writing songs for other artists, but she's also had her own stuff
Sia.
out. Yeah, exactly.
Sia's Australian. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
lots on
yeah.
Sia. Uh, I've got some on this gothic sort of guy who had a band known for his dark sort of, very dark appearance, bit Marilyn
Yeah.
Manson-esque in many ways.
I'm trying to think Australian who's like that. Who's that? Who could it
Uh,
be? I
Nick
can't
Cave,
think. Oh, Nick Cave. Somebody said Nick Cave before. Yes.
Nick Cave and the Bad
Yes,
Seeds,
and his
and
son died, didn't he? So would
well,
that
two
be a
sons. He's had two sons.
two?
Yeah, yeah,
Well, Nick and Kylie did a song together. I don't know if
that's
you
right.
remember that.
Yeah, they did.
Is Nick involved with the Geldof sort of
Not
circles?
not that I know of, but the major story that I'm going to be bringing is the Michael Hutchence situation. So
Yes,
the Michael Hutchence triangle
I know a
with
lot
Bob
about that.
Geldof and
Yeah.
Paulie Yates. Right. Okay.
Mm,
So that happened in Sydney, right? So
yes, it
Michael
did.
was discovered in a Sydney hotel room on the 22nd of November, go figure, anniversary of the Kennedy assassination
Yeah.
in 1997. Lots of anomalies in that story, lots of dark aspects to it, unfortunately. It brings in Bob Geldof, uh, also Paulie Yates. I mean, all three of them are very fascinating characters to
Yeah.
study. Michael was in a relationship with Kylie for a time as
Yep.
well,
That's right.
before he got with
She
Paula.
went to the funeral.
So I've got a whole load on that to unpack. And
I've had a victim of the in Ireland of the whole um, coven that the Geldof could be, yeah,
right,
associated with.
right.
And yes, there's a whole town it's like full of them.
Yeah. So
So yeah, there's a lot of.
the thing about it is the Australian music industry will be no different to the British music industry or the American music industry in terms of how the artists are controlled and used to push agendas. There's no way they would have let Australia off the hook. There's no way that British and American artists would be used to further these agendas and push mind control and satanic symbolism and all the rest of it. And they would just let Australia do its thing. Doesn't work that way. Every country has its own
Yeah.
industry. So I've had people from Croatia send me pictures of Croatian pop artists, and they're doing the very same signs and symbols, these
Mm.
occult hand gestures that you see from the British and American artists. There's
Bollywood as
K-pop,
well.
there's K-pop out of Korea, there's J-pop out of Japan. And when you look at these artists, they're doing exactly the same symbolism, all the same stuff appearing in their videos, all the same themes and ideas are being presented. So it's a worldwide thing. Not going to say global, it's worldwide. Any
Worldwide.
nation you might care to name that has a pop industry of any reasonable size is going to be down with this. In the same way that look at what we've been through with the COVID situation. 2020, pretty much every nation in the world locked down exactly the same
Down.
time, adopted exactly the same measures. What does that tell you? They're all working in conjunction with each other. If they weren't, you'd have got individual reactions from individual countries. Some nations would have said, well, we think we should handle it this way. and another nation would say, no, no, we disagree. We think we need to do this. But they all did exactly the same thing at exactly the same time because they were all being directed from the same central decision-making source. And it's that way with the music industry. So if they've got a particular theme that they want to focus in on, let's say the promotion of transgenderism, then they'll be getting British artists to do that, American artists, Australian artists, and you'll see all the same thing creeping into the videos from all these artists all over the world. That's the way the industry is run. It's part of one big centralized network. I know it's unpopular. I know people don't want to hear it. And I myself wish it was some other way. I actually wish I didn't have to do this job. I do it because it needs doing, and I'll do it for as long as it needs doing. But I would rather be doing something different with my time. I'd just rather be out there DJing, to be honest,
Yeah.
and playing great music. But for
Good.
as long as this remains the priority, then it has to be done, and we all have to be
It's a
doing it.
calling, isn't it? Isn't it,
It
Mark?
is. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to read some of the wonderful comments. People are throwing names out left, right, and centre. Amanda, your dear friend Amanda, who goes by the name of Seven Ravenwolf on YouTube. She's thrown out a few names. I read it. Let me just go back and see what she suggested. Just bear with me. She didn't mention about Bon Scott being a sacrifice from ACDC
Right.
back in the day. I think Amanda was the one who said that. Henny Penny, who's in the chat, who's a musician herself, and who, after I did a interview about with Richard Balducci about Paul McCartney, Henny, who's a musician and who has met and who absolutely loved the Beatles and was massive fan of Paul McCartney. She said I broke her heart when I let her know all about this, but since then, absolutely wide awake. And she's thrown out some names as well. Warner Chappell, Any Connection, John Bromwell, John Farnham. I don't know if you know of John Farnham, the Australian musician.
Yeah.
Stevie
Wasn't he
Wright.
pushing the arm spear lately? Did I hear?
Probably he's a legend in he was big in the 80s and they've
Yeah.
used his song on a
Well, his song
current
"You're the Voice"
referendum. The
is, yeah,
Voice.
is so empowering. You listen to the
Yeah.
lyrics; that's an amazing song. So then to hear that an artist like that is pushing the Britney Spears is just so disappointing, and it just bears out everything. You know, the entire point that I'm making, that they're all owned, they're all controlled. Even those artists you think are on your side, those bands you think
Yeah.
are putting out empowering lyrics, and they're on the side of the people. People used to believe that about you too. I mean, imagine
Hmm.
that. People used to think,
Yes.
oh, Bono's a great guy.
So
He's
placid
down with
and
the
yeah.
people, Sunday Bloody Sunday, and uh, up against the establishment and all that. And here he is hanging out with Bill Gates and pushing United Nations agendas and all
And
that. Straight demon.
allegedly with trafficking, allegedly.
Yeah, well, straight demon
So
either way.
yeah. So we've had a few people mention Bono as well, and they wanted to know if Bono was connected in any way with Geldof and with Michael Hutchinson's death.
Hmm.
And this is all allegedly, everybody.
Not that I've come
This
across,
video is for entertainment purposes only. I need to say that we are only discussing things for entertainment purposes, right, Mark?
allegedly.
Allegedly. Georgie Kane, who's from New Zealand, has asked, please ask about New Zealand. Is there any New Zealand artists that you can think of from your research? Anyone who can you name some names? I'm just trying to think. Split Ends. What about Split Ends? Split
Well,
Ends.
to be honest, I'm not that familiar with the New Zealand market. So sorry
Okay.
to all New Zealanders. I won't be touching on any of those in this tour. I would like to get to New Zealand someday. And if I ever do, then
Mm,
I would focus in on some aspects of the New Zealand music industry. But at the
yeah.
moment, I don't have anything on NZ. So sorry about that.
I think was it that pop musician? Oh my gosh, what is her name? She was a young teenager and she became really famous really quickly from New Zealand. Is it Lord? Is
Jacinda
that her name?
Ardern, who used to be a
Is
DJ.
it?
That's been
Yeah,
scrubbed
oh
from,
no!
yeah,
And also used to
that's
have
been
a
scrubbed from her
dangleberry between her
bio.
legs, apparently.
Yeah, I remember hearing a few years ago that Ardern used to be a DJ. She used to play celebrity sort of, uh, you know, upmarket DJ gigs in London, celebrity parties and such. And when she became prime minister, that aspect was scrubbed from every biog you could find online. You won't
Ooh,
find a reference to it
wow.
now. So it's like they didn't want people to know that she used to be a DJ, because otherwise they might not take her
Yeah.
seriously. They'd be like, "What's a former DJ doing running our country?"
Well,
Well,
we've had
uh,
a lot worse come out.
Look at Joe Biden. They can get anyone to run a
Yeah.
country if they want them in.
There was a musician named Lord. I just worked it out. Her name is Lord, but she came out of New Zealand with that famous song a few years ago. Oh God, I can't even think. But she was like 15 years old, allegedly writing these incredible songs and
Right.
making it big in the big time. That always makes me, leave some questions and doubts in my head. Somebody brought up not just Split Ends, but also Crowded House. Of course, Crowded House was a big
Oh, okay.
song.
Yeah.
Annabella wants to know about Sinead O'Connor. Any thoughts on her death, or on what do you think happened with her? And on that subject of mysterious deaths in the music industry, I want to know what you think about Prince and his death, and a few
Okay.
others. But Sinead,
All
any
right.
any
So
word?
Sinead obviously mind controlled to oblivion throughout her career, unfortunately. I think she had a wretched life. It was pretty clear from the release of her first album, with that shaven headed look, that she'd undergone probably satanic ritual abuse, which is very connected to trauma based mind control. So many of these artists are. The shaven headed look is often a visual indicator of this, as well as bleach blonde dyed hair of the type that Paula Yates had, for instance. And Marilyn Monroe was the original archetype of what's known as the beta sex kitten. It's all part of MK Ultra mind control programming. But so is the shaven headed look. And people might remember
Brilliant.
that famous incident where Britney Spears went into a hair salon and shaved off all her hair. And she was saying, "I've got to get this stuff out of my head, got to get these things out of my mind." Bit like the Kylie song, "Can't Get You Out of My Head," maybe. So those were the comments that Britney was making, and she's an obvious candidate for MK Ultra style mind control. There's a famous interview where she actually breaks down in the middle of it, and you see one of these mind control alters coming through. So that was pretty disturbing viewing. And Sinead O'Connor ticks all the boxes as well for having undergone a very turbulent past. She was known for being controversial. She was known for being outspoken. This also is consistent with somebody's mind control programming breaking down. So there's aspects of themselves, their own true innate humanity, bleeding through and overriding the programming. So I think that's what we saw a lot of the time with her. Towards the end, of course, she helped push the COVID nonsense and the arms spear agenda and all of this. And she was saying, "You can't come to my concerts unless you've had it." And she got a lot of hate for that. But I think she was just an individual who was under very heavy mind control her entire life. She had handlers. Many people feel Chris Christopherson would have been one of her handlers,
Wow.
allegedly. He
Okay.
came on stage at that concert at Madison Square Garden where she was getting booed by the entire crowd just after she'd been on Saturday Night Live and ripped up that picture of the Pope live on
Yeah.
air.
Yeah.
So she got a lot of hate at that particular gig. And Christopherson came on stage and whispered something in her ear and led her off. And
Mm.
that is very in keeping with a mind control handler subject
Yeah.
relationship. And ultimately, I personally feel that she took her own life. Uh,
I do too.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think because there was word on the Truther circuit that she faked her death, and this is a
yeah, yeah.
popular thing with the
We
Q
get this all the
people.
time.
Yeah, Q
Yeah,
people saying they faked their death.
mm,
I believe George Michael definitely is dead and died,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I have questions around Prince.
Okay,
I did some
yeah.
dowsing on
So
this. So, what do you
yeah,
believe about
so I
Prince?
think you have to go artist by artist.
Yeah,
And you can't make blanket statements. A lot of
no,
people do. A lot of people will say, "Oh, when we're told these famous people die, they don't really. They
no,
just retire the public persona and they
no.
go off to live somewhere under some sort of witness protection program type situation." I don't think you can say that about every artist. I do think that happens with some of them. So, for instance, Jim
I agree.
Morrison, who we're told turned up dead in his bathtub in
In
Paris at the
Paris.
age of
Mm.
27, I'm not buying that. because of who Jim's dad was. I'll be getting into that some more in the talks. But in a nutshell, Jim Morrison's dad was a high-ranking Navy admiral who was in charge of the fleet of ships involved in the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which springboarded America into the Vietnam War. So Jim was connected. He was from a very prominent military family, and we get this with so many artists. Olivia Newton-John, by the way, another sort of British Australian artist, her father was an MI5 officer. Go figure. So what are the
My
sons
sister
and
went to
daughters?
university with her sister.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, just letting you know. Yeah.
Right. So
So yeah.
what are sons and daughters of military intelligence officials doing becoming rock stars? It's not a natural career path, really, is it? You know, a lot of them go to university or they go to places like the London School of Economics, like Mick Jagger did, and they study there. And most people coming out of those places go on to get degrees in law or finance, business studies, this sort of thing. But many of them come out and become rock stars. Why is that? It's because they're pushing agendas which come out of the world of military intelligence. So these agencies are responsible for directing what happens through entertainment. So I got a bit sidetracked there. I was talking about deceased
Prince.
artists.
Yeah.
So Elvis Presley, I don't buy that Elvis died when we're told he did in 1977 either. I think Elvis was secreted off somewhere to live out his remaining days. Look up Pastor Bob Joyce on YouTube. I'll just throw that in.
I'm going to share with you, if you have time, a dowsing video I did about are they alive or dead? And everything you're saying is what came through with the dowsing, as to whether they were alive or dead. And so
Right.
yes, and it spelled out Pastor Bob Joyce, and I didn't know much about this, but that's what came through. So
Yeah.
yes, there seems
Pastor
to
Bob
be.
Joyce, I'll just leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there are some artists who were genuinely taken out. So I personally lean towards John Lennon having been genuinely assassinated.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely Bob Marley. Both those guys
Yes.
were a pain in the ass, a thorn in the side to the
Mm-hmm.
establishment. They were uniting people, they were inspiring people with their political activism, so they had to go. Chester Bennington and Chris Cornell definitely taken out, in my view, because of what they were preparing to expose. Then you've got some question marks. So I've got question marks over David Bowie, Prince,
Mm-hmm.
Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
I definitely lean towards George Michael having been taken out, as you do. But the big question marks for me are Michael, Prince, and Bowie.
I agree.
So, you know, it could go either way. There are some strange elements. There's the Jack Steven guy who came out in the wake of David Bowie, and that takes some explaining away. There's the Dave thing. That's a bit, suspect with Michael Jackson. Prince, I lean more towards Prince being taken out than not because of some of the things that he spoke about and because
I
of
don't think he made it at
I
the time.
feel his mind control programming was really starting to break down. It's pretty clear that he was subject to it. This is why I think we have so many amazing artists. Look at Michael Jackson. Look at the way he could dance, he could sing. Look at Prince. I rewatched Purple Rain, the movie, again the other day. That guy was an absolute phenomenon, a powerhouse. You know, he could play the piano, he could play the guitar, he could sing, he could dance, he could write songs. He was absolutely amazing. But I think when you get these really impressive musicians and actors and performers, what we're seeing is, in many cases, mind control programming. They've been programmed to be that genius. You know, the Bourne movies with Matt Damon, right? There's one movie where he's obviously a CIA MK Ultra guy. He's been trained as a Manchurian candidate style assassin. And I seem to recall in one of the movies, he has a pocket handbook for it's a manual for, is it a foreign language? I think he like skims through this book and he can learn a foreign language within a few minutes because his mind has been so focused and so trained to concentrate on the information through the programming that he can absorb it in that way. And I think that's why we have so many musical geniuses. They learn how to play these instruments, they learn how to sing, how to dance as a result of their programming and as a result of trauma. It's like a side aspect of trauma. One guy who has fascinated me for years is Derren Brown, the British illusionist. He's been on TV for
Yep.
the past 20 odd years. His stuff fascinates me.
Mm-hmm.
Shows, I study what he does in his TV shows, and he talks about mind control and how to manipulate the human psyche. When he was at school, he was bullied mercilessly. And one way that he came up with to deal with the bullying was to dissociate from what was happening and focus on something else. And he used to focus on things like counting things that he could see. And to demonstrate it, one time he had a big jar of buttons. There were like hundreds of buttons in this massive jar. And he asked an audience participant to smack him around the face. And this guy slaps him lightly and he says, no, no, harder, harder, hurt me, really, really smack me. So he smacks him around the face. And then Derren empties out the jar of buttons and he looks at them and he goes, 349 or whatever it is. And then he counts them and he's got it to within one or two buttons because he's looked at all of them and he's used the trauma to focus on this other thing so that he doesn't have to focus on it. So he can bury it into his subconscious and just put his attention into something else. So there's an example of what happens through dissociation. And that's what I think we're happening with is happening with these musical geniuses, which is why they're just so damn good.
There is something actually paranormal about a lot of this as well. And those who practice the mind control and the satanic ritual abuse, this is not just about what these people are doing on earth, but they're actually becoming conduits for other entities, allegedly. That things, people say that these altars that they are actually creating through the mind control programming is actually the vessels for these entities to come through and to manifest. And I know that Chris Knowles, I don't know if you know much about Chris Knowles's research, but he talks a lot about, you know what I'm going to say? Yeah, so he talks a lot about how the Cocteau twins, Elizabeth Fraser was used, through her mind control programming in Scotland, and how she sort of, an entity sort of is coming through a siren. He's suggesting it's a siren or another, non-corporeal being. These gods and deities are coming through these famous singers, and that somehow there is something even more supernatural happening on Earth, and it's not just about the 3D entertainment. There is something bigger than just economic and military power.
Yeah.
What do you
I
think of
heard
that?
that show that Chris Knowles did with Greg Carlwood, the Higher Side
Yes,
Chats.
brilliant,
And
isn't
I
it?
listened to that again just the other day, actually, and it
Yeah,
absolutely blew my mind. Chris Knowles' research is
he's.
incredible.
I want to
And
get
that
him on the
story,
show.
it just sent shivers up my
Yeah,
thinking Liz Fraser,
yeah,
very, very obvious candidate for SRA and trauma-based mind
absolutely.
control. I guess we better say allegedly. But
Allegedly.
ticking all the boxes. And
She's lost her voice now. She's
oh,
actually
really?
lost that. Yeah, so they actually think that that entity's left, and she's not
Wow.
singing the way
And he
she
was tying
used
her
to
in with
anymore.
Jeff Buckley and this
Yes,
Song to
which
the
is
Siren
the
idea
video.
and
Yeah,
Mermaid
this is the video I
Sirens and
want to
Death by
do. Yeah.
Drowning. Yeah. And let me just tell you, the
Mm.
synchronicity in my life these days is off the chain because I was in the airport last night waiting to come home and they're playing songs in the airport and it's all sort of American rock music and just obvious. And I'm sat there waiting for my flight to board. And all of a sudden, my attention was caught. And I was like, wait, is that the Cocteau twins? And they were playing the Cocteau twins in Las Vegas airport. When do you
Yes.
ever hear the Cocteau twins out? Their music is not an obvious choice to play in a public place. It's very ethereal and otherworldly and just amazing, incredible, but it's underground. It's underground music. Not many people know about the Cocteau Twins. Not many people knew who Liz Fraser was until Chris Knowles brought that research it in the bloody
Yes.
airport. What are the chances of that? And here we are today talking about the Cocteau twins. This sort of thing is happening to me all the time now. And it
Well,
raises some big questions like, what is this reality? What is
exactly. Well,
going on?
you do know why. And every time I think about you and back when I wanted to meet you in 2020, I wanted to present you with all this information that I had researched about Jeff Buckley. I'm a huge fan. I have a connection to this guy and his death and things like that. But I'll tell you why you heard it in Las Vegas, because the Cocteau Twins had the song Heaven or Las Vegas.
They did.
They did.
This is
And
true.
I will keep it muted because I don't want to get a copyright strike. But everybody listen, this is one of their biggest hits. Mysticism. That's the
That's right.
type of research he calls
That's
it.
what he calls it.
Synchro mysticism. So it's about studying these symbols and synchronicities in various circles
Yeah.
through the occult and the entertainment industry, and finding the connections. And it's there is something else organizing all of this. It's
Yeah.
kind of the
His
conclusion he
point,
comes to.
his, his point, which you know, an idea that I came across years ago, is that all this stuff cannot possibly be the product of human planning. There are just so many correlations and crossovers that it's not actually possible for a bunch of people to sit around a table with a spreadsheet and say, and then we'll do this, and we'll connect this in here, and we'll do this event on this date. There are supernatural paranormal forces, as we would call them, that are causing all these things to come together.
Mm.
Everything vibrates at a particular resonant frequency, and that attracts other events of that nature in towards it. But whatever the case, it's not human planning. There's other stuff going on here, and it's caused me to just question the true nature of what this place really is. Not to stray too far off the
Mm.
musical topics that we're discussing here, but I'm really coming around to this idea that we're living in some sort of simulation.
Yeah.
Simulation theory has been a very popular theme within
Mm-hmm.
conspiracy research in recent times. I didn't really pay it much attention until very recently. And so much of this stuff is happening now that it's just causing me to question what this damn place is. I always used to
Yeah.
think it was the original creation of the Most High, the one true creator. But we now have the idea that it's some sort of copy, some sort of bastardized version of what's really there. It's an overlay,
Mm.
if you like. And this,
Mm.
and
You're
Dave
getting
Murphy
cut.
was talking about this. Do you know
Yeah.
allegedly Dave Murphy? You know that guy?
Yeah. Yes.
You know him?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, great guy, good friend of mine. He absolutely blew the minds of the conference crowd because he was talking about how what we might be living in now is some sort of artificial version of what should be there because
Mm.
the powers that should not be have developed some sort of technology
Yeah.
to go back to a point in time where there were a number of possibilities waiting to play out. And in the reality in which we find ourselves, a certain version of things played out.
Yeah. Mark Devlin, you're cutting out there with your internet. Not sure if you
Some
can hear
way,
me. You're cutting out there.
I'm
Yeah, it's cutting out a little bit. So I'll just say that these topics you're bringing up about simulation theory, I've been talking about for 3 years and doing deep dives and astral journeying into that and seeing that exact same thing. And this is what the Gnostics were talking about this false reality and then the real creation, and how
right.
we're in this kind of double reality. I think David Icke talks about it as well, but Dave is probably, same sort of thing. And just quickly, I'll just tell you that some of my journeying that I've done, I've seen these archons, these entities that seem to be playing with the timelines, and what they're doing is they're kind of like switching us around to
Right.
create different outcomes, different each time. And this is why we're seeing these Mandela effects and things of that
Yeah.
nature. There is
Am I
something
back?
fiddling. You're back
Can you
now.
hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear
Okay.
you.
Cool. Yeah, so Dave was going into all of this, and he mentioned the so-called Mandela effect, which I think is a phenomenon. I
Mm-hmm.
think it should be called the Dolly Moonraker effect.
Oh no, got cut
I
out
was
again.
hearing these. I cutting out again. Damn.
Okay, now you said
Okay, don't know
Dolly
why.
Moonraker.
Yeah, it should be called the Dolly Moonraker effect. That would be a more accurate term. And up until recently, I was hearing these ideas about, oh, I didn't really go for it. I was like, no, that's too much. That's too far. I'm not going there. But I am now because I'm seeing some stuff. We can resist it for a time, but eventually
Mm-hmm.
we have to face up to these things. And now I'm having to reevaluate and reassess my entire conception of what this reality is and what these lives
Mm.
are. And the questions get even bigger and the rabbit holes get even deeper. And you never reach a point where you have all the answers. You can never sit back and say, well, now I've figured it all out, because there's
Yeah,
always going to be more to know as we discover.
exactly. Well, welcome to the club, Mark, to the Simulation Theory Believers Club.
Okay, I'm a new
Yay!
recruit.
You're in my crew. Yay! I'm not, and I don't call myself a flat earther, but all I know is that whatever this is, it's not what they tell us. It's definitely not a globe. I can see it as an expanse of space, but that it gets created as we're traveling in it, almost like a simulation. And that's why it is flat. So there is a 3D aspect to it, but there's a multidimensional aspect to it that as we create it, and and as it's forming, it's sort of expanding and being built as we're moving along, if that makes sense. So it has to be a plane in that respect, but it isn't. It
The
isn't just one
Australian
thing.
crowd that I'm a flat earther because I don't want to lose half my audience.
Well, you did go to
So
that
I'll
Las
keep quiet
Vegas
about that.
conference. Did you see Mike Williams? Was Mike
Well, yeah,
Williams at
true.
the
Yeah.
was Mike Williams
No,
at
he
the
didn't come to
conference?
this one. He didn't come,
Okay.
but Jason Lindgren was there from Crow,
Okay.
Crow and
Oh
Jason.
wow, wonderful. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Jason's presentation was amazing.
He's
I
great.
mean,
He's so smart.
Dave Murphy and Jason Lindgren blew my mind because people come up to me
Mm,
all the time and say, "Oh, Mark, your information was incredible," but those guys had my jaw on the floor.
yeah.
Theirs was incredible. We all learn from each other.
Yes. Oh, look, some people are saying we're definitely, I don't think it's spinning either. Yeah, sorry. You've got a few people. Look, most of my audience are probably believing the same things that you are believing. I like to say that I definitely don't believe it's a globe. I think it's multidimensional, and I think it depends on the observer. But ask any pilot and they will tell you that it's flat. So there is something to that. Let's talk about, I don't know how much time you've got. We've been on for about an hour. Is there anyone in my chat that's coming to the Sydney gig? If you are, or if you would like to check out Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, these are the 4 destinations that Mark Devlin will be coming to in Australia. He is a madman, I tell you, because the dates are, let me share the screen again.
Adelaide, promise.
Sorry, say that again.
Sorry, Adelaide. I'll get to you next time.
Yeah, I know. They
I just
always
couldn't
say
fit
that.
it in.
I can't believe you're doing it in a week. Honestly, we are absolutely rat shit tired after any of our gigs that we do with the gigs that we did for Tartaria Australia, and even 2 months is not long enough to in between gigs. So
I've had years of
um,
training.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you're one person, and trying to grab all these people to sort of all meet at the same time is crazy. It's not enough time. So here are the dates, everybody. I'm going to put them up again. Wednesday, 1st of November, Melbourne. My dear friend Kelly Jones, who I did the show with, she bought 6 tickets and she can't come because she's in China. So she's
Oh, damn.
she wasn't
Big
here.
shout out to Kelly. Thanks for all your help. Much appreciated.
Yeah, awesome. So Wednesday, 1st of November, Melbourne at St Kilda Sports Club. I was there. St Kilda Sports Club. You'll love that. You'll love that place. 66 Fitzroy Street, St Kilda, starting at 6:30 p.m. for his Melbourne gig on the Wednesday, 1st of November. Thursday, 2nd of November, Mark will be flying up to Brisbane at Volunteer Marine Rescue. Our dear friend Amanda is organising that. Doors open at 6:30 p.m. That's in Shorncliffe in Queensland. On Saturday, I will be there with bells on, thank God, 4th of November. This is all divine. As you were telling me the dates, I was going, this is all divinely planned, because if it was at night time, I don't think I would have been able to go.
Well, we got
But
time for an
1
after
till
party on that one, right? Because it finishes at 5.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna shout you a drink and maybe some dinner. Saturday, 4th of November, Sydney at Club Burwood, which is a great location. It's not too far for many people. It's kind of central. People can come from all over to go there from 1 p.m. till 5 p.m. And finally, he's flying from Sydney on the Saturday, you crazy man, then going to Perth on the Sunday, all across the country, 4-hour flight to North Fremantle Community Centre in Perth on Sunday, the 5th of November, for his final gig. And from there, Mark will be flying out back to merry old England, to old Blighty. So thank
Yeah,
you. That's
crazy shaky.
fantastic. So glad you're coming. You are nuts for doing that schedule, but I
Yeah,
will be
I am.
praying for you.
All
Lots of
right.
Baroque,
Well,
lots of what do you call it, Barocca, and what's that other thing? What do they have in England? Lucozade. Lots of
yeah,
Lucozade.
Red Bull,
Red Bull.
the nasty stuff. I know people will be shouting at me. No,
No,
no, don't have that
it's
stuff.
you got
But
to use
I've
it.
got I've
Use
got
it
a
when you
few
can.
coping mechanisms to get through this. They are legal.
Yes, they are. Yeah, listen, I'll help you out there.
They're
Don't
all
worry.
legal.
I'll buy you a big case of Red Bulls. Mark Boyeski's in the chat. How are you, Mark Boyeski?
Hey, Mark.
All the way
What's up,
from
brother?
Spain. He said, thank you, JCK, for sharing Mark, and good luck, Mark. I'm sure it's going to be a blast. Mark
Thank
Boyeski, we want
you.
to see you out here in Australia too. Let's have a look in the
Sure.
chat real quickly, see if anyone's got any questions. Zal, yeah, you're going to come? Okay, good. Zal Moxis is going to come, definitely. So he's always, he loves you. He's been following you since the beginning. Fantastic. Let's have a look. Everybody is just thrilled to be here. We've got 268 in the chat, which is pretty good because I'm shadow banned from YouTube and they're not sharing my videos. So that's great. Amanda says, I'm only able to do the Brisbane leg, which is great. I'm glad that you're doing that, Amanda. We were going to do a little interview, her and I, before you came so that we could talk about your tour as well, but we didn't get a chance to do that as I
Somebody's
was
just
moving.
said you're going to be here at the same time as Billy Shears, aka Paul McCartney. Apparently, I guess what he's
Was
touring
that
out there.
Henny? Henny, were you saying that?
That's come
You are
from Henny.
here the
Yeah.
same. Yeah, Henny's the big
So
fan,
what a
or was
blast!
the big
Imagine if he
fan of.
turned up at the gig and just sort of hung out at the back in disguise to hear
Yeah,
what I would say
some
about him.
latex.
Yeah.
He
Well,
does
he's
do the
used for that, isn't he?
latex. Mm.
Yeah.
And he's got one bung eye.
What a blast that
Did you
would
hear
be.
about that? Yeah, that'll be great. Come
You
on,
know,
Billy, we love
you know,
you.
Van Morrison turned up to a couple of my gigs.
No.
Yeah, Van Morrison was hanging out in the back at a couple of my talks, and then he sort of scurried off at the end. But
Wow.
that's pretty crazy.
That's crazy. Do you know I
Yeah.
was born on the same day as the original Paul McCartney, same birthday, not the
Oh,
same year
18th of
though.
June.
Yes, that's my
Okay.
birthday.
All right.
Yeah. Next week, everybody, I will be having following on from this discussion, but it'll be great to see. I think I'll be interviewing Richard Balducci about some research he's come up with, but I'm not sure if it's before or after I see you in Sydney, Mark. But that'll be great if I could cross-reference some of the stuff that you're talking about with Richard Balducci, which
Is he
he
talking about McCartney?
possibly, and some other research there, some esoteric research as well, some new
Yeah.
research has come up with about some occulted things that
Right.
are happening in the world at the moment. So more than likely about McCartney fall, as some people call him. Brandy Harden says, I love this, JC. So good to see, hear, feel your heart space. Fantastic. I'm loving this. So Henny Penny, same day first. Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. So Billy Shears is going to be there. Billy Shepherd is going to be in Brisbane on the 1st of November.
Oh,
Brisbane
thank,
4th. Sorry, same date, first in Brisbane on the 4th. Okay, in the Gold Coast.
oh,
Okay,
thank God.
so
I'll miss
you'll
him.
be in Sydney. Yeah.
Good.
Who
Different
knows? It
city.
might get you at Perth. It might get you. Who
Might
knows? He's
see him
got a
at the
private
airport
jet,
on the way back.
or maybe a private jet. He'll
Well,
fly over to.
yeah, more than likely. Yeah.
I'd say so. Is there anything else you want to chat to us about?
Well, I mean, let's just raise that question.
Yep.
Even if you accept that that's the original Paul,
Yep.
okay, he's 81 years of age. Now,
Mm,
according to Mike Williams, Billy Shears was born in
bit
1937.
older.
So
Mm,
that makes him what, 80,
84. Is it
80,
four?
86?
86.
86. So whether he's 81 or 86,
Six, yeah.
why the hell would you want to slog it out on that long ass flight to Australia to
Mm,
perform concerts when you really don't? I know people will say, oh, they get a buzz out of the performance and they just love being in front of a crowd. But in your 80s, really, do you really still want to be doing that? And this just bears out the idea of lifetime actors. They really are in it for life, and they have to put in a lifetime of servitude to the hand that feeds them. You get a sirhood, as Paul has, and you are beholden to those who gave it to you. So it's the same with all these musicians. Sir Mick Jagger, why is he still touring? Why would the Rolling Stones still want to be going out on the road? You said it yourself. It's tiring traveling. You come back exhausted. You're eating crap food. Well, they probably don't, but anyone else, you're not eating properly and you're not sleeping properly. Why would you want to be doing that? It's killing me at my age.
mm,
So there's a question. And the only other observation I wanted to make is a lot of people are very kind enough to say to me that my information has really inspired them and it's taught them so much. And they thank me for going out there and doing it. And they're very grateful that I put myself out there. And really, I see it as, first of all, nothing that special, really. I don't see what I do as anything particularly special. I'm just a guy, a regular individual who's come across some information, and I feel that it needs communicating with as many people as possible in as effective a way as possible, because it affects the way all our lives are going to play out. And specifically, it affects the lives of our children and their generation and all future generations. So it's very, very important this information gets out there. And if I can find effective ways of doing that, that's what I have to do. But there's nothing special about it beyond that, because I think everybody should be doing this in some way. Not everybody can do podcasts. Not everyone feels comfortable in front of a camera or a mic. I accept that. Not everyone can write books, but everyone can do something. They can get involved in some sort of activism, some way of spreading the word, even if it's just sharing information, sharing posts on Facebook. That's better than nothing. Sharing videos, that sort of thing. And the other observation is that I myself have been inspired by many other great speakers. The two who've inspired me the most have been David Icke and Mark Passio. And I
yeah.
really admire the way these guys deliver public talks, because in Passio's case, it's flawless. There's not a wasted line, there's no ums, no ers, straight to the point, impactful, empowering information. And David Icke is great as well. He just really engages the crowd and you're hanging on his every word. So I learned from the best. I learned from these guys how to deliver information. So I'm paying it forward. That's what I'm doing. I've learned from them. I'm now doing it. If I can now inspire others to get up and find ways of putting this information or any kind of empowering information out themselves, then I'm paying it forward. They're taking it from me. Somebody else will learn from them. That's the
Mm.
process that has to take place. So that's why I'm doing this. I've learned from some very great researchers, and I'm just very happy that I'm able to play my part in paying it forward. And I never
Well,
imagined my life would turn out this way. I never
mm,
imagined I'd be doing this stuff. 15 years ago, I was in Australia DJing. If you'd told me that I'd be coming back in 2023 and presenting information of this nature, I'd have told you to put the crack pipe down. But here we are.
well, I want to thank you personally for my awakening in many areas. And I just want to let everybody know that if it wasn't for you and the things that I discovered years ago when you pretty much first, I don't know if it's been about 10 years since I've been following you or I came across your work, but it's been quite a long time. but because of that, I was able to piece together so many other things. It's one piece of the puzzle, and then you start to connect all the other things. And I want to thank you for
Sure.
that, because in my mind, in my development, even though I've been awake since the 90s, I would say I knew a lot about all of these conspiracies for a long time. Since the 90s, I've been questioning the narrative for a very long time. Every piece of information has been absolutely valued and valuable, and I'm very appreciative of your research, and I just
No
want to
worries.
thank you
That's
for
great
that.
to hear.
I want to thank you for that, because then I pass it on to other people. Speaking of Mark Passio, just want to just segue really quickly into this before we go. So Mark Passio is an ex-Satanist who was working up with the big guys and helping them out, and then he's redeemed himself, left that, realized his conscience was just like, can't do that. These people are all service to self people. I'm about service to others. And he's been on this quest and has been targeted. And the work that he does is imperative and brilliant and has changed the lives of many people. So, just on that subject about entertainment industry in general, and even the truther movement and alternative media. I have just done a video, if you're here now, just done a video just a couple of hours ago on my channel about Kat Von D, who is an ex-occultist. She's a tattoo artist who's just been converted to Christianity. What are your thoughts on these sorts of things happening where you've got a public figure very heavily into the dark occult, known to be either a Luciferian or a Satanist, and then there is a change or a shift in their life? Do you know of any?
We all have to be allowed to have a past. So a lot of people say about Mark Passio, for example, you can't trust him, he's an ex-Satanist. Well, doesn't the guy have to have the opportunity to redeem himself and turn his back on what he was a part of? Who of us can say we don't have a past? I'm ashamed of aspects of my past. There's things I'm not proud
Me
of.
too.
I spent 20 odd years promoting many of the artists I'm now exposing. I was promoting agendas. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was buying into all this stuff. That's my past. I'm not proud of it. I've got an opportunity to redeem myself now. And many of these people have got far darker pasts than me. These dark occultists that have been part of satanic grottos, or these Luciferian groups, or whatever it may be, that's going to weigh heavily upon their soul. And we all have questions about our own mortality and what's going to happen to us when we leave these bodies. If you've been involved in that really dark stuff and you've got some skeletons in the closet, so to speak, I would imagine that your conscience is going to be poking you in the ribs night and day, and you're going to be questioning what it is you're a part of. And although many of them will be in too deep to be able to get out, maybe they've been mind controlled and they just can't get out of it. Maybe they're part of one of these bloodline families where they're just psychopaths and they're just expected to carry it on through the generations. But there are going to be individuals involved in that sort of thing who are going to question it, and they have to be given the opportunity to turn their back on it if they choose. And when they do, we should listen to what they have to say, and we should give them a pass. If
Yeah.
they're genuine, if they're sincere, and if they want to renounce what it is they've been a part of, got to give them a pass in my book. And it's great when they do, because we learn from whistleblowers, from insiders. There was this guy named John Todd Collins, who was
Yes.
part of one of these bloodline families. And
Yep.
in the 1970s, he came out and made a bunch of public comments. He converted to Christianity, became a born
Yes, I
again Christian.
remember.
And he revealed a lot of the dark secrets of the music industry, such as how they place hexes on the master tapes of these recordings that get made into albums that go out there into the public. They bring witches in to all these major record company corporation HQs. There he is, and talks about all of that. So we learned a lot from John Todd. I certainly did.
Yeah.
So we have to be grateful for these whistleblowers, as long as they're genuine. Obviously, some of them are shills, gatekeepers on a mission. Russell Brand, don't trust that guy. Even in spite of what's happened to him in recent times, I still don't trust him. So I'm
I don't
exercising some
either.
discernment there. But
Mhm.
just because you have people like him coming forward and they're not trustworthy, it doesn't mean you don't have genuine whistleblowers. John Todd is a good example. There'll be many others. That lady you interviewed.
Mhm.
So we've got to be grateful for what they bring to the table because they help to bring some more pieces to that jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. And reminding us of John Todd. If you wanted to go back and delve deep into your conspiracies, a lot of people are past the conspiracy point now. They are awake, they're aware, they've gone through the anger stage. A lot of the people in my audience have already, they're very wide awake to this. This is just more information for them. They're not angry anymore. They're at that stage of just more pieces of the puzzle coming to them. But just a reminder, if you did want to go back and research and look into John Todd, there's a lot of information there that will help you piece together some puzzles about various cults and covens that work in the entertainment industry and symbolism and what goes on. And it's not just it's not just the music industry. They also do that on porn sets. Sorry, I should say corn. Can't say the word. Um, I didn't say that because this is monetized now. So yeah, they
Adult
are
entertainment.
summoning adult entertainment. They're summoning certain things and doing certain hexes on the lots of studios and creating dark portals in all these places. So yes, very well aware of this. Um, love talking to you, Mark Devlin, and can't wait to meet you in Sydney in November. Everybody, please check the link below. I will also put it in the comments section after this goes live. I will pin the comment at the top for the link for you to buy tickets to see Mark live when he comes to Australia. And it's brilliant. It's been brilliant talking to you once again, and we'll finally get to meet.
Well, thank you, JC. Really appreciate you getting me on. And it's not long now. It's scarily
I know.
close, isn't it? This time next week, I'll be there. Yeah. So
Yeah.
hope to see as many people as possible out at one of those 4 gigs. Thank you again for allowing me to jump on this show. And I'm going to meet you in person in
Yes, it'll be
about
great.
10
It'll
days.
be awesome. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your time.
No worries.
I'll
Thanks for getting
see
me
you
on.
later, everybody.
See everyone soon.
Bye. Okay, I'm going to end the stream. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Okay, I've ended the
All right.
stream.